I wanted to take a moment today to discuss the current situation with the Xbox gaming platform, keeping a focus on both positive and negatives and what got us here in the first place. There's a lot of discussion about where Xbox are at now. Xbox was always my main console throughout the past gaming generations. I'd always buy third party releases on Xbox, mainly due to a larger friends list there, but I had every PlayStation console too, including those that arrived before Xbox. In the first half of 2024, I got rid of my Xbox Series X. Then, in the second half of last year, I abandoned any form of PC gaming and any remaining ties to Game Pass. I could see where things were going. Microsoft entered the console gaming industry and tried to disturb the Sony and Nintendo success. They did a pretty decent job with some unique franchises and a gamer centered approach. The Xbox 360 saw huge success with good performance, multimedia possibilities, and great titles alongside. That is until we spotted our Xbox 360's malfunctioning. We all had the red ring of death probably at some point. But I will say it was dealt with relatively well considering the circumstances, and people still wanted the repair to happen because they wanted to play those games afterwards. The Xbox One era is where everything started to go downhill. There's the famous pitch about the console becoming your TV station in the living room, mixed in with the belief that everybody would want the Kinect. There were also some problems with performance, generally speaking, for third-party titles compared to PlayStation at the time. And I also think the first-party titles at this point were consistent in a sense of delivering on what they had done previously, but never really pushed the envelope too much more. This also happened to be the first generation where people were building quite substantial digital libraries and cloud saves. Multiplayer online live service games were also taking off. Ultimately, from a digital footprint perspective, this is where you would start to lay your digital gaming foundations for the future. Acquisitions have always been around in the gaming industry, but recent decades have seen them become quite a bit more substantial. When you have the cash that Microsoft have, they really did go and do some shopping. They are not the only company to do this, but I think it's fair to say that Microsoft have driven most of their gaming sidearm using acquisitions. Most notably and famously, Bethesda and Activision Blizzard King. So the plan here is to have the most powerful console and a huge library of games via acquired publishers. Perfection, right? Well, not really. There's plenty of opinion on why we are currently here, but I think ultimately Xbox haven't delivered enough quality first-party titles in this generation, which is a generation where they were already behind. The damage limitation across current and last gen was Game Pass, and as all people say, it is incredible value. But I always think in every type of media and business that subscription models don't really have the legs to go all the way, especially when customers become a bit more savvy. Otherwise, compromises have to be made. So I mentioned earlier getting rid of my Xbox Series X console. This was tied into knowing that games like Grounded, Sea of Thieves, and others were going to eventually come to PlayStation. And I think this is that current compromise that Microsoft are currently having to do. I personally very early on could see that this is going to be the future for Xbox games, and I'm not surprised whatsoever that Forza Horizon 5 is currently wishlisted on my PlayStation 5. It feels strange saying that, but it's potentially my favourite game ever, and growing up I've always just automatically associated Forza Horizon with an Xbox console. But I'm not surprised that we are here. The current thinking is that there is no limit now, and we will see all titles arrive on both PlayStation and Xbox, including Nintendo hardware down the road. This is a case of needs must for Microsoft, so I understand why this is happening, and I think it ironically ties into their phrase, when everybody plays, we all win. This is the main concern now for most. Okay, so I get a PlayStation or a Nintendo console, or I have a PC, I'm going to be okay to continue playing Xbox titles in the future. What happens to the Xbox hardware? For those that have invested in a Series X, what is its purpose now when the other consoles will have a wider variety of games? These are difficult questions that Microsoft seem to not fully answer or just reassure people using Game Pass. I do think, as stated, Xbox hardware will continue to be a thing, but I am of the thinking that it may not be a strict console release cycle in the future. I can see the idea that Xbox sponsored hardware is supported with an Xbox like OS. And I also think that handhelds are definitely part of this equation. My guess is Microsoft may have a go at one final primary device, and that might just be a handheld. As somebody who has no ties to platforms and I just follow my favourite games, I still wish Xbox would have had more success in the recent console generations, because ideally that would have produced better games. Hopefully, this new focus as almost a third-party publisher is the answer to better quality games. Less time and money spent into research and development for consoles, and more spent on the games themselves. That sounds good to me. What are your thoughts on this situation? Are you somebody who recently purchased an Xbox console and you're feeling a little bit concerned? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for checking out this log, and until next time, happy gaming.